Hi everyone! So I am making this video for family and friends who I haven't had the chance to talk to individually or who don't fully understand everything. I know there's been a lot of radio silence and unanswered questions on my end, so I apologize for that. This past year has been challenging, to say the least. So for those of you who don't know, I've always had an issue with fainting, and there's always been just sort of things in my health that the doctors never really connected until now. It was always just kind of written off as a one-time thing because it didn't used to happen very frequently. Initially, I was diagnosed with orthostatic hypotension, which is when your blood pressure drops when you stand or change positions, which then causes the faint. And I've been diagnosed and undiagnosed with that multiple times. And finally, my primary care physician brought up POTS, which stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. The simple explanation of POTS is basically when you go from laying to sitting or sitting to standing, when you change positions, your heart rate gets tachy, which is above 100 beats per minute. For me, it's usually much higher. The symptoms of POTS include high or low blood pressure, lightheadedness, fainting or syncope, or pre-syncope, fatigue, gastrointestinal issues, nausea, temperature deregulation, exercise intolerance, headaches, brain fog, tremors, insomnia, a ton of other things. Super fun. So my primary care physician, shout out to her by the way, because she has been the only doctor that has been helpful throughout all of this. But she ordered a 5-day Holter monitor to measure what my heart was doing, and I kept track of when I was fainting and the symptoms that I was experiencing. So I did that, and then I went over the results with a cardiologist at Regions. And he said that the diagnosis was between inappropriate sinus tachycardia syndrome and POTS. But that since he didn't specialize in either of them, he wanted the diagnostic testing to be done by a specialist. So I was referred to a specialist in the U of M cardiology department. And of course I had to wait months for an initial video visit with him. So I met with him, and he was pleasant, if not mildly condescending. But I mentioned that the other cardiologists had said that it was either POTS or inappropriate sinus tachycardia. I'd asked him what his thoughts were regarding that. And he was sort of snappy with his response of, "You don't have POTS. People with POTS don't faint." Now, if you recall from, like 20 seconds ago when I was going over the symptoms of POTS, that's literally one of them. A simple Google search of the condition would confirm that answer. It isn't as common of a symptom. People with POTS generally deal with pre-syncope more than fully passing out or fainting, but it's still a symptom. Anyway, he thought that I had orthostatic hypotension, which I told him that I had been diagnosed and undiagnosed with multiple times. But he scheduled the testing anyway because the diagnostic testing for both is a tilt table test, which is where they connect a bunch of electrodes and stuff to you, and then they literally strap you to a table and tilt you until you're almost completely standing or in a standing position. They also ran labs and had me go from sitting to standing and stuff while monitoring my vitals. It was terrible. I didn't faint, but I almost did a couple of times, and it really increased my symptoms and stuff. And they'd make me sit back down, or they'd tilt me back into a laying down position. My heart rate would get too high. I believe during the test, my heart rate went up into the 130s, which is pretty standard for me. The highest I've ever recorded my heart rate is 207 beats per minute, which is really high. The diagnostic criteria for POTS is that your heart rate has to increase by at least 30 beats per minute. 30 beats per minute in the first 10 minutes that you're standing, or just that it goes above 120 beats per minute, both of which I met. So after the testing and whatnot, the specialist came and spoke with me, and he had to sort of eat crow and diagnose me with POTS. So he started me on a beta blocker, which is a type of medication that's meant to lower my heart rate, and told me to do a bunch of stuff that I was already doing, and then he wanted to check back in with me in about a month or so. So he didn't show up for the first video visit, which was fun, and then the second video visit, he asked how things were going now that I had started the medication, and I explained to him that while my resting heart rate I had noticed had lowered, my heart rate was still spiking, and I was still fainting. And he immediately stopped me and goes, "You're fainting? I didn't know you were fainting," which he did know. I even went back to like notes from the previous visits just to make sure that he knew that I was fainting, which he did. But he said he didn't have enough information to continue the appointment and we have to do more testing. Whatever. So his nurse called me later that night and said that they wanted to send me another 2-week heart monitor. That's what this fun thing is. To get a better grasp of what was going on or something, and that it should arrive by the end of the week. And if not, then to give them a call. Guess what happened? So Friday rolls around, no heart monitor. So I called the office. They said that the heart monitor company needed my insurance information, and I don't know why they didn't send over my insurance information with the initial request for the monitor. But anyway, they gave me the number, so I called the company and gave them my insurance info, and they said that they would send it out to my insurance, and as soon as they heard back from my insurance, they would overnight the monitor to me. Another week, 2 weeks goes by, nothing. So I called the company back, and they said that they were waiting for the doctor's office to send over a medical reason for me to have the heart monitor. Because if there's no reason for me to have the heart monitor, then the insurance isn't going to pay for it, and I'm going to have to pay for it out of pocket, which would have been ridiculously expensive, and they didn't want me to have to do that, so they were waiting to hear back from the doctor. So I called the doctor's office, and they said that they had just faxed over the information, and that it would be another week or so. So I finally get it. And all this time, you know, I'm unable to work. I'm fainting multiple times a day. I'm constantly bruised or hitting my head, which, if you know my concussion track record, you know that's not good. Plus, at this point, I was having blood pressure spikes high enough that I could have a stroke. So that was pretty scary. Still is. But anyway, I finally received the monitor, which connects to this cell phone, which I record my symptoms on, and it sends in real time whatever my heart rate is doing to the company. And I have to, like, mark every time that I'm experiencing symptoms or any time that I faint, which is super annoying because I faint a lot, and every time I faint, they have to call me and tell me to go to the ER, and then I have to tell them no, and it's, ugh, but whatever. So, not 2 days into having the monitor, and maybe 7 fainting episodes, I get a call from the nurse of my specialist, and they receive the data, and suddenly he wants to see me a lot sooner, now that he's seeing what my heart rate's actually doing. Previously, I was booked out for about a month and a half, but suddenly now he had an availability the next day. So I was pretty frustrated with the entire situation, but I had been super diligent about marking my symptoms, and I had done a lot of my own research and had assumed that what I have is hyperpots or hyperadrenergic pots, which would explain the spikes in the blood pressure when I otherwise have a normal, healthy blood pressure. Now, hyperpots sort of changes everything. It changes what medications I can be on. It also means that the cause is most likely genetic, and that it will most likely continue to progress and get worse over time. So this is all very new and difficult to accept. I don't like having to rely on other people for basic stuff. I can't go anywhere alone because I could faint and get hurt. I don't drive anymore. I can't do most of the stuff that I love doing. Theater, hiking, speech, longboarding, rollerblading. It's hard suddenly having to live a life that you don't feel like is your own. And I've dealt with mental illness, depression, anxiety, PTSD for most of my life, but I've always had solace in that I had these other things that I loved doing as sort of an escape. Even working. My most recent job was as a preschool teacher, which I absolutely loved, but I can't do that anymore. I can't pursue any of the dreams that I had. So it's just been really tough. I'm trying to stay hopeful that it won't always be this bad, and that with medication and treatment that my symptoms will be more manageable, but things feel pretty bleak right now. So that's the big update that like probably 5 of you were waiting for. So thank you for listening, if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my friends and family that have been with me through all of this, who have caught me when I fainted, and just for all of the support and stuff. So thank you, huge shout out to you guys, you know who you are. But yeah, so feel free to comment any questions. I'll try and answer them. But yeah, so that's it. Thank you.